ain't good.
A little brake boost. This new shifter. It's a lot longer. And the reasoning behind that is because my short shifter feels awkward after driving my daily for so long with the Eagle Talon TSI on my stock shifter with that shift knob. So I figured maybe a longer shift knob might help me shift a little bit faster in the race car, because I don't have to worry about the awkward feeling, because it feels more natural. Man, she gets wild when you shift fast. Jesus. Love this car. Out doing some driving around, gonna go and do some polls. Gonna try and run it all the way through 4th gear, get some data logs. So I will come back to you when we get to that point. Hit. Felt good. Air fuel ratios looked good. We'll come back after I turn up the boost a little bit. Alright, so out here doing some polls, and I started getting some really low oil pressure readings. The engine seemed to be running fine. I didn't hear any squeaking or knocking. Oil is at the full mark. It's got brand new 20W50 in it. It's got a good K&N filter, which is not loose. So I'm just going to turn up the boost and do another run on my way back home, and if it chucks a rod, then it chucks a rod. The only things I could think of is that either all these times slapping standard bearings into it, the clearances got too big on the rod bearings, and all the high RPMs it's been seeing in heavy boosts lately caused an issue, or maybe some rev limiter broke the oil pump gears, but I haven't turned it over about 6,400 RPM, so it should be fine. But I guess we're gonna find out. So on my way home, oil pressure stayed pretty consistently right about there, although it drops down to the low mark at idle. Car's not running any different. It's not clattering, lifters aren't ticking, so I'm pretty sure I'm good. I think it's just a faulty oil pressure sending unit, because it's not getting worse so far. The oil pressure does come up with RPMs though, so I don't know. so this is the data log of that 140 mile per hour pull, which Vmax in the GPS speedometer was logged at 143.34 miles per hour. That happened at 4,951 RPM because that's when I let out in 5th gear. And that means that this car hits 140 miles an hour at 1,050 RPM faster than the factory GT Trans, because the factory GT Trans on these exact tires, 140 was 6,000 RPM. So this car is doing it at 4,951 is 143 miles per hour. So actually it'd be about 4880 is probably where it hit 140. So that's a pretty significant difference in gearing, and you can hear in the video how long 4th and 5th gear are compared to the GT Trans. 3rd is a little bit longer, and the final drive is also a little bit longer. So this car, I bet at 6,500 RPM would do 175. Although I'll never take it that fast. And it did start to have some funky smells about 140. And I figure that was the fastest I need to be going on H-rated tires, which are only rated to 138, and they're not new. But max boost was 20.2 PS. Or actually, let's see what max boost was here. Come down to map, go to max. So the max was 20.7 PSI of boost, and that was at the top of 3rd gear is where it appears that we spiked the most boost. 4th gear and 5th gear rode out at right about 20.3 to 20.4, somewhere around there. As you can see, if I come over here, boost 19.9, 19.9, 20, 19.8, 20.1. Okay, so we averaged about 19 or 20 pounds. So looks like 3rd gear, we hit a spike of 20.7 or something. And then in fourth gear, we saw, looks like 20.3 PS, 20.5 PSI on the initial shift, and then it settled down to about 20, 19 or 20. And then fifth gear, it spiked. So it was 19, 20.1, 20.3. So almost exactly 20 pounds of boost, which is super impressive that it holds boost that consistently with a manual ball and spring boost controller. That shows that we are like at a really good back pressure to boost pressure ratio, because that is not falling off from lack of exhaust flow or anything like that. It's holding a solid 20 PSI the whole way. Let's see what max duty cycle was. 85% duty cycle. So yep, we saw a max of 85% duty cycle, which was at 20.7 PSI of boost, which was a 1060 air-fuel ratio. So that is rich as hell. I bet you we could get that down to 79, 80%. And it'd make a lot more power at this boost level as well. So that's what I'm going to send my tuner, is this data log. Try and lean it out all the way across the board. Get it to, 11.0 to 11.3-ish. And I'm going to get a new oil pressure sending unit, and hopefully it's not having actual low oil pressure, because if it is, I'm going to send it until Rodney knocks his way clean out of that block, and then fuck that car, because I'm done putting engines in it. Another thing to note here is that my max RPM was 5687, and that was in third gear. And you can hear in the video that it's, that's the sweet spot in the power band. So I'm shifting this car at 5600 RPM, and it's got the capability to turn to almost 7000. So this RPM is perfect for this boost level. I think once the boost goes up, the engine will make more power on the top end, and because this turbo will be flowing a lot more up top at the higher boost level, so I think I'll be able to run that RPM out a bit more. But you can feel it start nosing over on power after about 5500 to 5,800 RPM, which is because of the factory camshaft and really shitty flowing head. So, yeah, that was max duty of 85.1, max boost of 20.7. It was a 1060 air fuel ratio pretty much across the board. Like it saw 11.0 a couple of times at the boost spike, but that's perfectly fine. It says 94.6 TPS, but that's just because my TPS is a pile of shit, and it gets some like 5 to 7% fluctuations sometimes when I'm pedal to the floor. Like you can see it says max 100, and I was at max. I was floored right here. Or maybe this is just as I started letting off is when it spiked boost to shift into 4th gear. But either way, this car is making some fucking stink. Pardon my French. Some fire trucking stink on 20 pounds of boost. Almost 21 pounds of boost. Because that's, I mean, that ripped to 140. And I shifted slow into 5th gear just because that particular road, there's a spot right there where I almost always shift into 5th at the same spot, and the car gets unsettled if you shift right there. So I shifted slowly into 5th and then waited till it went over that spot before I actually let the clutch out and came back into boost. So it's got a lot faster, 60 to 130 in it, but that was just me being conservative. Just getting some data. That was what that was about.